And good evening also to the people which are connected now by remote connection. It's my pleasure to introduce Kiel, as we pronounce his name, but now I ask him to repeat the correct one. Shell.
Yes.
So, Overvåg. He is a professor in human geography and Inland Norway University, Lillehammer. We belong to the same networks, European research networks, and so we know each other since a long time, and we often discuss about the problems regarding mountains and the common challenges we have at the European level in the mountains. This evening, he will share with us his knowledge about societal planning to meet challenges in shrinking rural regions. So we are in the right place to speak about shrinking rural regions and in our case, municipalities. And in the next days, you will have the opportunity to participate to concrete experiences regarding this issue, also visiting a really shrinking community municipality here in Valle Camonica. And so I give the floor to Kiel. I go on pronouncing your name as we normally pronounce in the European environment, Shell.
Yeah.
The correct one, Shell. And I'm sure it will be very, very interesting for you. So enjoy.
Okay. Thank you very much, Anna. It's really nice for me to be invited here. It's a nice opportunity, and it's very nice to come here to your, okay, is it okay now? Yeah, to your region and to your campus here in Edolo. So, so I look forward to this seminar, and I will also have the opportunity to meet you, several of you at least, I hope, the next days. To learn more about these regions and to talk about different exciting things. So then I have, of course, here, yes, these slides. And I was thinking maybe the best is if I first go through my slides and have a talk about the issue I'm talking about today. And maybe we could have some comments and questions and discussions after that, if that's okay, that we do it like that. Well, yes, I guess I just start then. So the topic, what I'm talking about is local and regional planning. And planning is a very broad concept. You could say it's about how societies and governments, what you work with for when you are forward looking. What are you going to do in the coming years to deliver the services that you should do, to meet different challenges of all kinds, environmental, social, cultural, everything. And I have become more and more interested in planning, both social planning and also what you can call the land use planning or spatial planning, which at least should be closely connected, but often they are not that close connected. But that's also an important issue, that how you use your land and your resources should be really close connected to what how do you work with development and well-being and the life of the inhabitants in general? So I'm talking about this planning, especially in what we call shrinking rural regions. And I will come back to that, but here shrinking is related to the demographic changes that are taking place. Depopulation and aging, especially. Because the way local and regional planning has dealt with these challenges has not been very constructive, I would say. So we have had research projects working on how to deal with these challenges in a better way. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. Yeah, just a little bit more where I come from. You see, this is my city of Lillehammer in Norway. It's in the mountain and valley areas, just like here, not so far from a big city, just like here. So it has many similarities, I think, just from the short time I've been here so far. And Lillehammer is a city of 30,000 inhabitants, and it's the largest city in these regions. But then we have a lot of smaller municipalities and villages, etc., in the region. So it's a kind of a regional capital. And you see the mountains here near the city is much more not that steep as here. It's quite different. The topography is quite different from here. So we have a lot of skiing, you know, like in Norway, like cross-country skiing, but also alpine tourism and skiing. And we have a lot of second home developments, as this is just one picture. And as I often have to explain to people from other countries, these second homes are not in the existing villages, but they are up on the mountain plateaus, giving a lot of challenges for the environment and how you use the land. But that's not the main topic today. This is just to give you a little bit of the context where I come from, which of course has influenced my research, but I also worked a lot more on a European level, which also of course influenced what I've been doing. Okay, this is a map which is like the main starting point for this concept of shrinking. This is the projections or the expected population change in Europe from 2023 until 2040. And as you see, the white and more like purple colors are regions which will experience depopulation. And in area, this is most of Europe. And it takes place in all countries. And also this is on the, what you call the nuts tree level, the regional level, which in some countries are, like in Sweden and Finland, you could see, are very large regions. And this also hides that there are many parts of these regions which have depopulation. So even though they are green here, which shows an increase in populations, this is only part of those regions, and most other parts experience depopulation. And this is a kind of a structural development common for most rural areas and mountain areas, including many mountain areas in Europe. But you, of course, also have, like you can call, pockets of population growth in a few, which has been, you could say, either lucky to have some special resources or have been very clever due to many years to have some specific industry or economic sector which has given them a growth in population. So you could find that as well, but for most regions, the development is the opposite and is also expected to be this way. It's very hard. It's very hard to change this. Yeah, this is Norway, because Norway is not part of the EU, as you see here. So we are gray, together with Switzerland and Iceland and UK. But here is Norway, where you have the map at your left side is the region where Lillehammer, where I come from, it shows the population development the last 30 years. And you see that you have some municipalities, including Lillehammer, which grows a bit. And then you have all the others, which is shrinking. And this also you see at a national map, where you have a few places which is blue, and the other are in white or red, which is depopulation. And even though Norway as a whole expect to increase its population, but you see here the geographical scale in which you look at it is so important. If you look at it at a too high scale, like a national level or like a regional level, when the regions are very large, it hides many important trends and developments. So what do we talk about when we talk about shrinking societies and regions? And I use the word shrinking here, but because it is established partly within research and within policies, I would say as well, but I prefer to use the concept demographic changes, because it's shrinking is most people thinks about something only negative and only creating problems, but it's not necessarily in that way. We must think about is as changes that we need to be aware of and plan for. So that's why I prefer demographic changes. So from what I have been showing you so far, the demographic changes that we talk about is firstly population numbers. So depopulation, and this is of course related to birth rates and migration, and it's especially the low birth rates in the rural areas which causes this development. And this is, it's self-reinforcing, because as the population also grows older, there are of course fewer births. So this, it's a spiral which just increases. And of course, you have also migration, which for many, many years in most countries has been like more urbanization, people moving to the largest urban areas. But the other thing which is fundamental here is the changes in the age structure. That you have a larger proportion of the inhabitants which is elderly and which is not working anymore, which is pensioners, and also need more healthcare, etc. And then you have fewer people in working age. So this ratio between people in working age and the elderly is when we do interviews and talk with many of these rural municipalities, they are often more worried about the changes in the age structure rather than the population numbers. At least they see it as equally important and challenges. What we also should have in mind when we talk about more like demographic changes is that at least in some rural areas and in Norway, and I guess in many other countries as well, we see that the settlement patterns within the rural areas are changing. You know, when we talk about urbanization, we mostly talk about people moving from rural areas to big cities, but you also see like a small scale urbanization in rural areas in many places where more people are leaving the smaller places into the not big villages, but the largest villages within the municipalities. And this, of course, also have consequences. It could both positive and negative, of course. For healthcare, many think this is positive because then it's more like efficient to care of people needing healthcare, for example, just as an example. And you also have in some regions where you have tourism and a lot of second homes, you have what you can call, we often call them part-time residents, because they are, at least in the regions where people use their second homes a lot, many of them become like nearly residents, but they are not formally registered as such, and the municipalities do not get any income, like any taxes or something. So many places they only have the costs, but not the tax income. But this can be very challenging, but also has a potential to be something positive if you, as a local community, creates good relations with second home owners. They can also be your allies when there comes new development plans and other things, because many of them are very interested in taking care of the places where they have their second homes. So when we say shrinking societies, it's mainly those two first points here, population numbers and age structure, that we talk about. But the other things can also be important in, at least in some rural areas and mountain areas. Yeah, just another comment on the age structure. Many of you have, I guess you have heard about the population pyramid. It's an expression where you use the pyramid, you know, to compare it with a pyramid, because that's the classic way the population distributes, where there are more people in the youngest ages, and then are less and less as people die, actually. And this is has been the normal situation in many countries, at least the last from the 1900s and up to the 1970s, 80s. But then things start to change, and we have compared it to this Norwegian word. It's stabbur. I don't know, it's a house like this where they kept the food at the farms in the old times. you know, with this shape up from the ground so that not animals could go into and take the food. I don't know if you have any similar things here in Italy, maybe. Yeah, but yeah, it's, you know, it's narrow down and it gets broader higher up. And the same happens with what was earlier called a pyramid. Now it's more like a stabbur. You know, fewer down in the younger age classes, and more people in the older age classes. So this is an illustration of the issue of the age structure, the distribution of the population. And you know, it's not only within research we are concerned about this. I just took this as it came in The Guardian, you know, the British newspaper, who talks about Europe's population crisis. And here in this piece, they discuss the importance of immigration related to that, because that's, of course, in addition to birth fertility rates and birth rates, it's immigration who decides how the population is developing. And they made some interesting maps showing on your right side. You have a map with where migration will continue as about today, and how that will look in 2100. And you see that you still have, and the red and white are areas with depopulation. So you still, in many rural and mountain areas, you will have partly depopulation, even with the migration that we have today. But then the other map is if we stop all migration. This is just to illustrate how important this is for Europe. So in addition to what I've been saying now about the birth rates and the urbanization, you know, which mostly is connected to the people living in the country, the immigration policies can have important influence on population development, of course. But as you see, for many mountain and rural areas, there will still, you expect that there will be some depopulation anyhow. Okay, well, what does this development have of different impacts? And we could sit here and discuss this many days, because we immediately understand that if we are fewer people and more older, it can affect all parts of society in different way. It can be in positive and negative, and or it just changes some things. So, but what we see from our studies is that, of course, especially related to the labor market and the economic activities, this is challenges. More and more economic actors, but not only private, but also like for public services, really struggle to have people working there. So in more when we talk about rural and regional development in general, we sometimes say that 20 years ago we talked most about how can we create new economic activities, that so we have more workplaces. Now the focus is how could we get someone to work in the activity that, or the services that we have. So this is really a challenging also when you are developing economic activity. in rural and mountain areas. And of course, also for all kinds of services. Schools, elderly homes, all things are affected. And you, of course, need to plan for it and take it seriously. And we can list a lot of things for the ecosystem services that mountain areas delivers for its own population, but also for people from other places, to take care of them, to develop them. The infrastructure to keep up roads, keep up water and sewage in good conditions are affected by the economy of the municipalities, for example. Also, the environment, biodiversity can be affected if you have, for example, if agricultural land is abandoned, it will affect the local and regional biodiversity. It will change it. It could be positive in some sense. It could be negative in other ways. At least it could be changed. And the social life, of course, how it is to live there when there are fewer people, maybe fewer neighbors, other people. Yeah, the local community. The land use, as we talked about agriculture, if you have abandoned land or if you have other abandoned sites, different sites of different activities. And of course, the local communities and the local governments, what we can use resilience, how well they are equipped and manage to meet these changes and to deal with them. Is one type of resilience which is affected by these demographic changes. So generally, we could say that these challenges are highly interconnected and they are very complex. We, often use these phrases as wicked problems, and I don't know if you have heard about those concepts before, because it's a kind of a problem or challenges. There are no like fixed solutions that you can be lucky to find, and then things are solved. It's not like that. You have to deal with it. And of course, also at the European level, there is attention giving to the changes in the demography at the European level. OECD and all kind of organization works with this and do analysis and different things, and they run a lot of projects. I just put up some here just to give you some example. Interreg projects on how to activate citizens in shrinking areas. And this one is an ESPON project, which also is Interreg, which is called Rural Plan, Innovative Planning in Shrinking Societies. This last one I will show you a little bit more later, because I've been working on that project just recently. So the point of this is just to show you that this is really addressed now, both in policies and also within research. This was very interesting when myself and my colleagues at the university started to work on this topic some years ago. As you as student, when you start working on a topic, you must see, what does exist? Does it exist any research on this from earlier? And it really does also on the issue of shrinking. One of the books here are from the 80s. So this has been going on for quite a long time, but not so very well known. It has been quite few researchers and research institutes working on this, but this is now growing and getting more attention. And this is also here we had a special issue in a scientific journal here in 2022, where we discussed this, especially in a Northern Europe context. And he's also here. This is a book from a researcher from Sweden called Josefina Sissner, which has done a lot of very, very much interesting work on this issue, also connected to policies and planning. So this is what we have been inspired by and built upon when we are continuing this work. Yeah. So as you see, this has been an issue discussed for some times, and there is some knowledge about it, and it has been connected to how should we deal with it, what this has shown, how local planning has dealt with it so far, I will show you now. One researcher called Hospers, he found that in local and regional planning, there were mainly 4, what you could say, responses to demographic changes, shrinking. And the first one he called trivialization, which means that you pretend it's not happening. You do the planning and make the policies, but not thinking about these demographic changes. The other one was countering, which means that you try to, well, we will try to change this. We have strategies for population growth and have strategies and measures to try to change the situation. The third one was that we need to accept this and try to do some adaptation. And the fourth one, it was to try to utilize it, to try to make something positive out of it. And the main, what Hospers did find, and this was all over Europe, he found that the most common one was trivialization and countering in most rural areas. We did a study in Norway. I will show a little bit more of that later, where we found a mix of where they used a little bit of all these 4 strategies or ways of responding, both some countering, some accepting. But what is shown that generally research say that in most rural areas there is an unwillingness to address this issue. And this can be linked. Some researchers has discussed that this is a kind of a stigma that especially local politicians think this is something difficult to accept, and think that if we do not try to countering it, it's like we are losing in the competition with other regions, with other municipalities, etc. So, and I think this feeling or this kind of a stigma is an important explanation why trivialization and countering is very common responses in local planning and policies. So this is actually an issue which in many places it seems to be quite difficult to address. And as researchers, we say that, of course, then also what lies behind is that most of the planning models that we have, the theories that we have about rural development, etc., is kind of or either explicit or implicit, like growth oriented. the overall goal or the vision which lies behind all the thinking is that we should have growth in population and in the economy, etc. And this is a little more about the study, the research that we did in Norway, in the region where I live. So we see the same there. Now we see that of the 31 shrinking municipalities, 20 of them had population growth as a goal. And a few of them had stabilization as a goal. And very few of them in the plans problematize that this very big difference between, because in the plans they write and they show the statistics over the population development the last 20, 30 years, and also the projections which they have. But then at the same time, they state that our aim is to increase the population. And very few problematize that this is quite difficult. But we also see adaptation strategies regarding services in some places, such as kindergarten, schools, and elderly care. So there is a very big gap between some of the more what we call the sectoral plans, the plans for the specific services, and the more general overall municipal master plan. So they are very bad connected. And when we are working with this as researchers, and also when we talk with politicians and planners, I think everybody agrees that this is not a very good way of working with local planning. So what has been the recommendation then, from the research that has been done and from all the projects that we have had at the European level, at least many projects, we have kind of learned quite a lot, and also had some experience, and researchers have made some recommendations. Well, if this is not a good way, how should we approach this then? And I guess it's not surprising for you to see this first point then, that the first recommendation is that we actually need to accept these demographic changes. We must not trivialize it, but make them a central part of the planning process at all levels. And this is what also is called more like evidence-based planning or realistic planning, to take these changes seriously. And the second point is that, there are no fixed solutions how to deal with this. We need to think to find new ways of meeting these challenges. So we need innovation, both in the way we do the planning and in the strategies and solutions that comes out of the planning processes. And we also use the term, the concept of rural transformation is needed, because we really need to rethink how we do things. And we also should work more connected to the whole narrative, how we think about our rural societies, and try to decouple this shrinkage like from failure. Like we are not like losing. We could have good lives and good communities, even though the demographic is changing. So one must try to like not have these close connections, which is many places, between like you only succeed if you grow. And this also connects to this next point here, that we need to work on the concept, what do we actually mean by development and being successful? It could be should be many other things than just growth. It is about quality of life, well-being, how we take care of the natural environment, etc., etc. So we researchers encourage planning that we need to work with other types of goals for the local communities than only the growth-oriented. At least in addition, you know, this does not mean that you should not also focus on economic development and try to support entrepreneurs and all like initiatives. But if you have like population growth as the ultimate goal, you often will be like you will think you fail, but you could have succeed very well for those doing this new establishment, even though the population as a total is not increasing. It could be very important for the local communities. And in this work, citizen engagement is crucial, because you cannot do this kind of planning without engaging the citizens and have, you know, this is important of two main reasons. The first is democracy, that all people should have an influence on what is happening in their own local communities. And it's also connected to legitimacy, because this, you know, it is the strategies and the solution that you work with, you need to have the populations on board, that they are supporting what is happening. This needs to be supported by local people and local actors and NGOs and different actors. This is not something that can happen in the municipal office alone. It would not have any big effects. And then, well, this changed a bit. The font has changed a bit, but what is you will get these slides after, I guess. Yeah. So here it says that this also will not work without a close collaboration between different levels of governments and different sectors. So you cannot have a single municipality, a single region working with this approach without the support from the region. If it's a municipality, it needs to have some kind of connection support with the other levels of government. What we often call multi-level governance is really also a key here. So in a way, this is like what has been recommended as an approach to deal with these challenges. And yeah, and also this is just to emphasize that these recommendations also is quite closely connected to a discussion or an approach which comes, you could say, in addition, which emphasizes that we need to think about well-being and other kind of measures and goals and strategies for local development, and not only the growth-oriented. And the OECD also point to that this issue of shrinkage is best addressed at the regional and local level. You know, because this, as I said earlier, there are difficult to find any solutions or strategies at a national level, like which you can implement all over. It is very place-based, as we call it. It needs to be adapted to the local context. And that's why the regional and local levels are at least very crucial here. And what level that is, it's dependent on the different countries, but the level who provides the important services and who are the levels who are important in working with the development strategies and planning is the key actors here. So these local and regional policies are crucial. Yeah, and now I jump to a project which we worked with last year, 2024, where we worked with, it was an Interreg project for Espen. It's a small project where we worked with these 3 municipalities in Norway, Sweden, and Switzerland. In Switzerland, it was several municipalities. It was more a region because that's where most of the services and planning activities takes place. Not so far from here, I think. No. So what we did actually was to use these recommendations that we did have summed up from all existing knowledge. And we develop a new method for local planning based on those recommendations, you could say. And we implemented it in these 3 municipalities to test it. So it's tested in real life as an experiment, you could say, as a method. And of course, all those 3 municipalities, when they were invited, they agreed that this approach could be something that they would be interested in. Not all municipalities would agree in that, no. As I said, this can be quite challenges for local municipalities. So the framing for the whole planning process was that it is these demographic changes and challenges. This is an overall framework for the whole planning process, you know? So it's not to trivialize, but we need to actively work with adaptation, with mitigation, and to be innovative to meet these challenges. Yeah, and we also follow all the other recommendations I mentioned. I do not mention them again, but it is this framing, overall framing here is one of the key. And the other key is that we took methods from innovation processes. We have some researchers at our university who has worked a lot with the companies and organization in general, you know, with dealing with innovation. How could we develop new things, new way of doing things in our organization? So what we actually did was that we took these kinds of methods and included them and adapted them to local rural planning processes, where we used, there are also many models for local planning. So we, in a way, try to incorporate and merge these two approaches to planning. And we had never done this before, so this was a test, an experiment. Yeah. Also here, it's a bit, it has changed a bit, the slides, but we call this RUPIL, Rural Planning and Innovation Lab. We also call it a lab. Many things are called a lab these days, so we also did that. So I'm not going through all the stages here, but it's a process where the first 2, 3, sequences, steps in the processes are about having the right knowledge, the knowledge that you need, find out what are the challenges in our local community, because this is very different from different due to the context. And then you have the phases here, the phase 4 and 5, where actually the innovation component in the model comes, where actually we had groups with different types of people, with different kinds of competence, interests, knowledge. This was very important. And then they were actually working on finding concrete solutions to the most important challenges in their municipalities. And this is often in local planning without this innovation methods. They often do not go that far in trying to find solutions and strategies. Often is much more general on a level where you discuss some goals and some very general strategies. And then it's often stops there. But here we go much further, trying to discuss together. And this is very important. This is so-called co-creation and collaboration, where you actually work with concrete strategies and solutions. So this is a kind of the main things, the main changes from a more normal or standard local planning process. Yeah, I will not now talk a lot about all the results and everything. I will give you the links to all the reports and so forth, but like just very short, we actually managed to have the demographic changes as a central part of the process, although even in these municipalities who agreed to have this approach, it was quite difficult. Because the discussions, many of these people have been involved in many local development processes earlier, and it's very hard not to go into the discussions that we need growth, and how should we do this, and so those who steered this process had to be very active and think, okay, but remember now, this time we are trying to work within that, we accept that these changes probably will happen anyhow. So now we should think more about kind like other goals. What is otherwise important here? And when we managed to do that, the discussions and the solutions that came up were really about things, different things. It really gave a different perspective on local development. So it was much about quality of life in different perspective of those people living there, you know, not only think about all the people we want to come, but how should we have a good life, we who lives here. It was a lot about health, general health, about the labor market, of course. How could we improve the situation with all the challenges on the labor market? Could be different ways of doing that. It was a lot about developing, you know, NGOs. It was a lot of housing, a lot about social housing, developing more social housing, and also in one of the municipalities, they discussed that we need to have social housing, which goes, which connects different generations, not only for like the elderly alone, but to include the youths and families, etc. A lot of these things which they normally did not discuss so much in a normal planning process. Yeah. And we conclude that we see a lot of innovation, innovative thinking here. And that's what the municipalities also said, and the participants. Well, we have never discussed this before. This is really new thinking, new for us here. This has never been done here. Yeah. So in general, this was worked very well, I would say. But only 3 municipalities, and of course, it needs to be, we need more knowledge about this, because this is a quite small project. This is just one of the reports. It's a policy brief with a lot of arguments. I mentioned just a few here, The first one is that we see that one good thing that one should try to do in these processes is to focus on, okay, what can we do together here as a local community? And not only or too much think about what should all others do, and only do complaining about the region or the national state. So that's not, of course, many times it's relevant to do it, but it's not so fruitful when you are trying to do something in your local community. But of course, you can try to work with the other levels of government to influence them to do other things. But focus mostly on what can we do here, and how can we share the responsibility to do it and help each other. And at least in these 3 countries, we saw that to include the local politicians in the same processes as equal participants as all others was very important. Because it's the politicians who, at the end, should accept the plan. So they have to have a kind of ownership to it and think that this is a good way of doing it. We also see that the local authorities and actors need quite a lot of room for maneuver. They need possibilities to implement many of these new solutions. And we saw that many of them say, oh, this is a really good idea, but due to this regulation and this, it's difficult for us to do it as it is today. We need changes in our frameworks to be able to do it. It could be like legal, that's difficult to change, but it could also be more cultural. Oh, we have never done this before, but you know, we could do it. Yeah. And we say that this planning process is for many regions, they can do it themselves. There is develop a toolbox and all the knowledge that you need. But for many smaller municipalities, they would need some help from maybe local government, regional governments, or some support from researchers or others. So this is my final slide. I've talked for a long time now. Just to shortly sum up some of the main points. This I've said many times. Demographic changes must be accepted and a key part of local planning. We also see that what you can call unrealistic goals and strategies might lead to waste of resources. We have seen that examples of that where you use a lot of resources of trying to counter, or that you plan for growth and then it's not happening. Then this is not the best way, probably many times, to use the resources. Innovation is needed, as I just say. And also, as I also said in the beginning, in work like this, there are some potential in replication between municipalities and country, or upscaling between countries in Europe. So you can learn from other, but the local context here is so important that for most solutions, you could be more like inspired and find ideas. And then you need to discuss, well, how could we use this idea as an inspiration for what we could do? And how should we translate it to our local context and do something about it in our community? Yes, that was all from me. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Now it's time for questions. Yes. So
yeah.
Also at home, feel free to open your microphone, the one connected in Zoom, and ask a freely question. But first, let's see what you have. We have the first question for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Administration in a more decentralized. Could you repeat again? I didn't exactly get what you said. Yeah. Yeah.
A more centralized solution in a political sense. So how is it possible to balance this need for local solution and the increase of costs?
Oh, this is, you know, this is this is part of the complex problem and wicked problem, because as I said, when you have in most European countries, you have this connection between population numbers and tax income. So the local societies or communities' ability to do this kind of planning is like, if you see it isolated, it's becoming actually more and more difficult to have the resources to do this kind of planning. So that was also the last point I had there, that for many of these rural, smaller rural communities and municipalities, they actually need support. And this is where the multi-level cooperation between the communities, the municipalities, the regions in many places would need to support the local municipalities with the resources needed to do this kind of processes. And this is not only economic. I don't think this is not very expensive way of not, you know, the planning, at least the planning process itself is not a very, it does not take many economic resources. Yeah, it's the human resources which is the most challenging. So that's where you would need more support. Yeah, thank you. A very important point. Yeah.
Maybe we will talk about later. You talked about. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
You talked about co-creation and for the and share responsibility. What do you mean in this case with co-creation? Co-creation, you mean dialogue between citizens and or politicians, something like that?
I actually mean two things mainly in when I use the word co-creation and collaboration in this related to local planning. I mean, first, I mean it in the planning process itself, where, you know, as I said, you know, the engagement of different actors and citizens in the planning process itself, that they participate in the workshops, and there we put together groups with different people and different actors, like from the economic sector, from the agricultural, from the services, from the tourists, yeah, and you know, also the more you know, what you call the sport club, or every like people with different competences and interests, and that they in these workshops as part of the planning process work together to find strategies and solutions. So that's to co-create solutions. And the other thing it means here is that many of the solutions that actually comes out, which is the result of the planning process, they need many actors and people to cooperate and co-create it to make it happen in real life. So that's the other meaning of it. Yeah, you had a follow-up question? Yes.
Go on.
Go on.
Yes. And this process are like based on something that has happened in some project, or it's like a project. I mean, I think that it's based on a real project. So
yeah, it's based on a real project, but also, you know, in most local planning process, you know, before this model also gives much emphasis to participation, that local people should participate and say they have their opinion heard and participate in different things. So it's in that way, it's not new that people should be engaged in local planning. But the more new thing here is that we actually engage them to work together on more like practical solutions, how to actually do things. So that's the new thing.
Okay. Well, there's a question.
Okay.
Can you read it? Or...
Yes. Should I read it loud? Or
yeah.
You can see it?
I
can read it. So I can read it loud so everybody here hear it. Yeah. Among the so-called Italian internal areas, is this? No, it's not the beginning of the.
It's a very long question.
It's Anna.
Yeah.
Yeah. I live on the hills of Yeah.
Overvåg.
Yeah. A region not far from Milano, but that is among so-called internal areas. We are not a mountain region for shoreline and shrinking. My municipality about 240 inhabitants. Here's my questions. In your experience of studies, there is a sort of activation threshold or level in terms of number of population composition size or other concepts that will able to escape a shrinking situation and at the same time affect positive change, avoiding a simple growth farming. Well,
It's quite a complex.
that was a complex question. I wish I could talk with Anna. Activation threshold.
Maybe Anna, can you explain a little bit
Yeah.
more?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
Yes.
there you have it. There.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Good.
Hi,
Hi.
everybody. Yes, the reason why I'm asking this is because I have a lot of experience also in our areas, or also about local development projects. But I noticed in this experience that we had a lot of problems because you have already said this. It's really difficult to involve people that have, for example, different ages, or there are not too many people that are available to be involved in some of these experiences. So I'm asking if there is a sort of a threshold. For instance, it's very difficult to activate any kind of involvement if we are in a situation where there are not too many people that are that are involved.
Yeah,
you know.
Yes, I understand. That's a really. It's interesting that you say this because we have been working with a Horizon, an application for an Horizon project on this issue, also with another Italian partner in further south, and this has also come up there, and I think there are some thresholds here, yes, because when I hear and I talked with you, Laura, about the very, very small municipalities and the small villages. And I think it would be quite difficult to have a good process at such a small scale. So from our experience, we normally work with a bit larger scales where we at least have like municipalities with at least 2,000-3,000.
They are big communities.
Yes,
for us.
yeah.
Yeah. Big municipalities here.
Yeah, so maybe in Italy, it's not the municipal level, which is the right one, that you should collect more like villages and together. So because I think you need some kind of participants that you actually have some from different economic sectors, from different sports club, and so you actually, because this will not work if there are very, very few people participating in the planning process. That's true. Yeah, that's true.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm sorry for my bad English. I'm working on it.
Yeah.
And my question is about if you think about the quality of the mountain population and and about the industrialization of the mountain areas. That's because I think if the compromise to get the people back into the mountains or in the rural areas is to industrialize these areas, it maybe won't work. I can't express very well in English, but
No.
I was thinking about if you, as a researcher, thought about how to connect the people's necessity with the inner property of mountains and rural areas. I don't know if I've been clear, but
do you think that a large-scale industrialization is not a good idea? Is that what you think?
I don't know, but for example, when I first come to Edolo and I saw like a big commercial area or a thing like that, I've been impressed about it. And so I think, but it's not my problem. It's about do not sorry.
You can do it in Italian if you want.
Okay.
Let me translate.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
No,
right?
no, no.
Okay.
No, perché mi so se qualcuno può dire. Il mio punto di vista è che se il problema di riportare la gente nelle aree rurali che sono state abbandonate per via delle difficoltà che si sono incontrate nello sviluppo di una società più grande, piuttosto che del crescere i figli e quant'altro, se il compromesso a cui dobbiamo scendere per riportare tutta questa gente in queste zone è far diventare queste zone aree sviluppate ed industrializzate, se non al pari, in maniera simile alle città o comunque a zone del genere, mi chiedo fino a che punto non tanto ne valga la pena, ma sia giusto più che altro. Perché a quel punto si va a snaturare anche un po' l'essenza dell'area rurale e quindi mi chiedevo, non sto dicendo che non bisogna farlo, mi sto chiedendo se a livello di, no, non tanto il confine, ma se a livello di ricerca c'è stato un pensiero a riguardo.
Did you understand?
Yes, perfectly.
Is asking which is the compromise of bringing people back in mountain area, if it's right for this community to undergoing a process of industrialization of, looking like cities and so on, and undergoing a process of denaturalization of these places in order to bring back people and give them services like big commercial area or big infrastructure and so on. He is asking which is the compromise.
Yeah, I think there is no general answer to that, like yes or no, because you can really well understand that this is tempting for many people who see this as an opportunity to attract people and to, economically to have better services, etc. Because also when we talk about the inhabitants, we talk about the thresholds also for people, you get more, you have a wider variety. But what I just from this perspective, and also when we talk about, we could talk about industrial development, or if we talk about tourism development, what is important is that you have local processes where people actually have the possibility to say what they mean and think about this. And also a balance is so important, because if there are hardly any societies which works very well, which is very dominated by single industries or single economic activities. This is normally not a good thing, even if it's like tourism, as we talked about before. Tourism can be a very good thing if it's quite well balanced with the local population and integrated. It can give a lot of benefits for both the local populations and and the tourists. But if it's too much, it's becomes a problem for many. And I think it's the same. If you have one big industrial company or within one kind of industry, it becomes maybe too dominating. And it's also very, you know, you are very exposed to risk, because if this industry goes down, it is a disaster which can happen very quickly to a local community. We have some of them in Norway, which is only based on like aluminium industry, and they are the single, you know, maybe 500 employees, and then there are just a few in some services. If that goes down, if it disappears, you know, the whole society disappears. So it's very, this is also a dimension to think about if you want to develop these kind of industries.
Thank you.
I was actually taught that at the very basis of local development, we have social capital. So I know your studies are based particularly in Norway, right? I don't know the one with Espan, but I'm thinking of levels of social capital, how strong the social capital is in other European countries. And I can already see half of Europe lacking it altogether. So my point is that, okay, we can innovate and do all kinds of interesting stuff, leading all to public participation, right? But we don't care. Because in many rural communities, even small town communities in, say, Hungary, Romania, Poland, Baltic states, they just don't care. So how do you get these people to be more active public participants? Make a framework for
that. Yeah, I wish I had a good answer for that, but this is really challenging, as you say, because what we have been done of studies so far, it is at least the local municipalities have been interested, you know. And I think, as you say, I think that's also because they think that local people, local actors would participate. So in that way, our research so far has mostly been in areas with a quite high social capital. So, but well, you say that in many places, many people do not care, and that's maybe true, but from all my experience in also in quite many European countries, you also find quite many people who actually cares, I think. So at least you need, but this is when we had worked with this, we have used a lot of time in engaging people and getting people to come. You could say if you first succeed in getting them there, they are mostly very, you could see, constructive and active participating. But it is a really, really true challenge problem.
I think what's also vulgar, they're preoccupied with their own conservation. I mean, you know, when we talk about extreme poverty and stuff, so it's not that they don't care. They care for, I would say, more essential stuff, more basic stuff.
Yeah.
My question's kind of building on the last one a little bit. In that, do you know if any of the municipalities continue to adopt the strategies and innovations after the experiment?
Well, it's quite early then. This was in 2024 that we did our research, but we have had some contact with at least two of them, just in other, like in other projects, and at least some of the strategies has been followed up quite closely. Because, and that was, I didn't mention it here, because also a key success factor here, we think, is that you do these processes as part of planning processes that you would have done otherwise. This does not come as an extra thing in addition to the local planning process. This is actually the local planning process. So it's not, because many people can be quite, what should I say, tired and exhausted if there is too many processes and things that they should participate in, etc. So you need to be very cautious about how much you ask people to come and engage, because there is a certain, what you could call, capacity. So this is also part of the recommendations in the policy brief, that if you should do it, this should be as part of the planning process that you otherwise would do, and not as an extra thing.
So you kind of set it up to be implemented in the future, and that's how it will carry.
Yeah, and like to integrate it in the existing planning, so it comes into their action plans, their economic, into their budgets, etc. Because it's only then things will happen.
Yeah, like a different method to take decisions.
Yeah.
That makes sense, because often I've seen in the UK there's quite a lot of innovation that's been invested in like departmental type things.
Yeah.
But often once the kind of hand-holding from whoever set it up or gave the money goes away, the project also goes away.
Yeah, that happens so much with all those projects all over Europe, that you find out something smart during the project, but then when the project is finished, it stops. So so that's very, very true. Yeah.
In Italy, we have lots of territories, especially in the middle of Italy and in the south of Italy, where there aren't, for example, schools or hospitals for maybe 1 or 2 hours by car. And in a practical way, how is possible to resolve this type of problems? Because maybe these territories are inside the national parks or things like that, where it's not possible to build an hospital or a school or also streets to arrive easily to big cities.
I understood you say that some schools, for example, the pupils have a very long way to travel. Yeah. You know, the research does not give one answer how to solve this. This is dealt with in many different ways in many places, and it is actually this is a real problem where there is not one single good solution, because you need to balance between, you know, for the schools to have so many pupils that there are a good, what should I call it? That it also good socially for the pupils. It could be very lonely if there were only very, very few pupils, and the balance between the distance that you travel. But what has been discussed, as I see from different countries, is, you know, for example, different combinations of using new technology like distance learning and that kind of things, for for the more primary schools. There has been developed a lot of good new technologies for doing that, so that maybe you don't have to travel so much or so often, and to find this is kind of solutions that I've seen for some of those issues. Yeah.
And here are burning like case di comunità. So like places where you can find in a remote area like Lazio, and so the near Osimo municipality has this casa di comunità where you can go and do your blood exam, or you have like a doctor a couple of times a week, or other social services. And these are like presidi for remote communities that are trying to solve this kind of problem. And also school, as you're going to see in Lazio, they don't have a school, and they have to go in Malegno or Borno, I think. And so you're going to be a part of the local planning process for Lazio. So you're going to see and try to solve as much as you can this kind of problem in our communities. So it's not only a problem of the middle part of Italy, but here is a reality.
And also I see in discussion that, you know, at least in Norway from many, many years ago, the teachers were actually traveling from village to village and at school for some days. And this has been discussed. Could we use that idea also now? Take it back. Maybe not only the children should travel, but the teachers as well. So there could be many different ways of thinking about this.
Just a couple of more questions. And
Hi, I have a question about maybe more your personal experience about this work that you do. And I would like to know what you think, and if there is a balance with innovation of rural places, and also to maintain a good quality of life for people. And maybe if you have some experience about this thing that worked in a good way, or maybe some place that this work in a bad way. So where do you invest money? And maybe if you invest money in a particular sector, maybe you will have a problem in another one. And how do you manage this kind of balance? I don't know if I...
Yeah, I think...
Just easy question for you.
Yeah. I could give you one, at least for the first part of your question. I can give you an example of what was an innovation in the Swedish municipality. They developed a concept, which they called senior power, where senior relates to the elderly people, but many of them have a lot of resources. But this was a new initiative where they planned to do different things, but one of the things was to invite all seniors when they were at the beginning, when they became pensioners, to talk with them and talk, do you have a plan for how your retirement life should be? They tried to connect them to different activities for health, like very easy sporting things or other social things to make their lives more better, because many of them becomes more social isolated when they are not at work anymore, because at least in the Nordic countries, we're not that social as maybe further south in Europe. So many people are more alone when they are getting older. So it's very important to prepare, to create them a network when they become retired. And by doing this, they hope to also, more like maybe, and also for a health check.
Yeah.
A health check. So both health and their social life, they try to prepare them better for what comes. And also then they hope to reduce the costs for healthcare, so that also people can help each other much more, and that kind of things. And this was a completely new thing, a new solution in this Swedish municipality. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is going to be a really quick one, and I'm addressing your gut feelings. My job caught me in Brussels at the Committee of the Regions during the pandemic, and at that time and the years that followed, everybody was talking about how small towns and how the rural areas will take over. I mean, this is going to be a demographic trend of people leaving the big cities, metropolis, and going there. And apparently, we're still talking about shrinkage. And is there any trend of such sort? I'm curious. Do you see it in Europe at least?
A trend of moving back, or moving out.
Well, back, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there is. It's when we. This is all. It's very good question, because when we talk about depopulation and migration, we should also remember that even though people are moving out, there is in all municipalities, at least that's not maybe the very, very small, but at all municipalities, there are also some moving in.
Okay.
In most rural areas. So there is also some sort of inflow, but it's smaller than the outflow or the death rate, you could say. So you have new people many places, at least. You have always had either people who have grown up there and moving back, or people coming from want to change their lifestyle, do something new. You will find that in many places. So to take well care of them, this was also something that came up in the project, that many new initiatives to have a capacity to welcome new people and to make them stay, also to include them much more in the social life, etc. So this is so this is one answer, but I don't have any research on that, but you see, I just read about some Spanish municipalities who really were open for migrants from outside Europe, and where it was a key for them to have enough labor. As we saw, to have enough labor and which they were very happy with. So, but the general trend in Europe when it comes to in-migration is not going in that direction. So yeah. Many things, well, all the trends today, what we see today, you could expect still shrinkage in many places. So, and that's the point of departure here. You need to take it, you need to plan for it, and to have strategies. But you can have very good lives in those places as well.
Okay, thank you all very much for your participation and the interesting question. And we are going to see each other tomorrow here as well. And thank you for all the participants online, and have a nice evening.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Ah, wow. Good.